This maple blank is too big for my lathe. This blade is too dull for the maple. Just a little bit more. This is one of my early attempts at turning a bowl. I hadn't touched a lathe since junior high school. I bought an old lathe from a high school that was getting rid of old tools, replacing them with new ones. It didn't take long to fall in love with wood turning. I think I'm starting to get the hang of this. Well, if I were to turn the camera on now and then, we'd get more of this excitement. Very dry, hard maple. To get it a little more towards round, we get up to almost 300 RPM now without shaking things to pieces. Whittling away at the corners, trying to get it round enough I can spin it faster and make better progress. Right now, this poor thing needs a bit of a sharpen. Getting around her. Sure taking a beating. I watch most videos at higher than normal speed, so I have to remind myself to slow down and take it easy. Getting there. Sharpen this again. I'll true up the bottom now and figure out whether I want a mortise or a tenon on this. Camera angles are not imaginative. My camera boom at the time was a 1x2 clamped to a shelf with a camera clamped to the stick. I wasn't comfortable doing push cuts from the inside toward the outside. I'm still not comfortable doing that. I think part of the reason is I'm not comfortable bending over the lathe. It's a little high in the middle. Now, tenon or no tenon. One inch, which would give me 2 inches. I still haven't decided if I'm going to cut a mortise or a tenon. My mind doesn't work as fast as it used to. The wood is hard enough to support a mortise. I'm thinking. Go to a tenon. The angle on the end of my skew is just right for cutting dovetails and tenons. If I'd thought to bring up the tailstock for support, I could have eliminated that vibration. The angle between tenon and bowl is not sharp and clean, and I can't get the chuck to seat properly. I'll clean it up with a detail spindle gouge. This old lathe does not have a spindle lock. I used that length of pipe for extra leverage on the tailstock locking bar. I later replaced it with a wood handle that I turned on the lathe. I also turned that quill crank handle on the lathe. This quill extension is not great, but this lathe cost me $200, so I should not be quick to complain about anything. I fought that bulky banjo for months and finally got it properly adjusted and the underside properly cleaned so that it worked like brand new, just in time for me to get ready to sell the lathe. Okay, now that's not quite centered. Is the high side. I thought that dimple was off when I looked down through the faceplate, but it looks square here. We've got a long ways to go, and that's close enough. Goddamn banjo. Okay, we're all set for tomorrow. I think we'll sharpen this up a little bit. This hard dry wood. Quite a bit of dust coming off of this. Because this dry maple was so dusty, I put on a dust mask. About 1/4 of an inch. To get rid of the defect in the rim, I would either have to take the top of the bowl down halfway or go back up the outside and take care of it that way. It was a little awkward working from that side, but there was room to do it because the bottom of the bowl was so wide. So that's what I did. Well, I got to get this out, and that's going to get most of that out. So we just keep whittling on it and see what's left. There are rough spots and chips that need to be cleaned up. There's that ring, goes almost all the way around. It's hard for me to see when it's spinning. I'll figure out exactly where the gouge needs to be to shear scrape that off. And then I get a pen and mark the tool rest. Sometimes it seems like I'm putting more tool marks in than I'm taking out. Well, I'm satisfied with the outside, at least for the moment. It's time to take care of that nasty chip in the rim and go to work on the inside. I'm going to have to come in down some. That's a little too sharp. And I've got to get rid of this and this. I'll make this cut in real time. So you can see that, yes, I really do know how to slow down. I realize I don't need to scrape the top of this. It's all going to be cut out anyway, but it's a good place to practice. That's looking good. And this sharp edge has got to come down right now before I slice my fingers off. Just a little bit of cleanup right here. It takes me a minute to figure out how to approach this. Still that slight little dent there. I sift the chips to get fine dust to mix with glue or sanding sealer to fill cracks later. I begin sanding with a 120 grit and work up to 400. Dust filled the air in my tiny basement shop and reminded me that I'd forgotten to hook up my dust extraction system, the shop vac. I wire it to the bed of the lathe and turn it on and put on my earmuffs because the damn thing is loud. But my ears have a higher tolerance for noise than my lungs have for dust. Should have had the shop vac on the whole time. I got sanded up through 400. I hadn't realized how much the face shield and the mask muffle my voice. I'll add subtitles.
On sanding sealer overnight, and on some axe polishing, well, brace paste and polishing paste. I think this bowl is going to turn out mighty nice. A lot of good grain, interesting grain, and I don't think I've left any tool marks. So, well, can't tell if I'm looking at grain or, yep, that's grain. Okay, I've got some sealer on this, and call it a day.
Some spots still weren't quite smooth enough. Yeah, I know you're supposed to use a rag to apply this stuff, but I kind of like the feel of the wood. I'm happy with the way this outside finish turned out. Now to see if I can hollow out the inside without wrecking it. Ouch. That was a bad catch, but at least it stayed on the lathe. I should have left the tailstock up for support.
And that was tight too.
I tightened it as hard as I could, checked it for true, and went back to work. This time with a parting tool. There is no reason for not bringing up the tailstock for support. I should have been going at it from this direction all along to minimize side loads. Before you pile on with comments, keep in mind this is one of my earliest bowls last year. If I'd known then what I know now, I'd have left the tailstock up and worked from the outside in. establishing the thickness of the wall and working my way down and gouging material out of the middle as necessary to give me space to work on the wall. That way, the tailstock would have provided support for almost all of the hollowing process. I'm going to sharpen a couple of gouges. I'm always amazed at how nicely a freshly sharpened gouge cuts. You should really sharpen more often. Miscalculated the hell out of that. I can go a lot deeper. Don't know what I did there, but fingers are surprisingly accurate thickness gauges. Two and a half to the bottom. Don't want to go any deeper. About quarter, 3/8 from the bottom. Come off some more here. I can't afford to screw up the transition from wall to bottom. There's not enough bottom to allow for mistakes. I need the longer tool rest. Almost finished, and I get a catch. Damage is slight, and I can repair it. I confess I don't know the difference between a skew and a negative rake scraper. Regardless of which this tool is, I'm using it as a scraper. I'm getting near the end of this project, and that's usually my danger zone. I see the end in sight, start thinking ahead, getting a little bit of a hurry and making mistakes. I'm trying really hard not to do that this time. I really like this bowl. Well, it's just about finished, I think, except for lots and lots of sanding. We all know what sanding looks like, so I won't show it to you. There were a few imperfections I thought I could fix. I like this bowl too much to let it pass without being the best I could do. I just needed to smooth the rim a little bit, and then of course more sanding and finish, and it would be done. That block of maple wasn't as dry as I thought it was. Once it was thin, it dried quickly in the dehumidified air of my basement shop, and the rim became uneven, high at the pith ends, low at side grain. So I put it back in the chuck, evened up the rim, and sanded it again. Okay, I'm not going to put on my sanding sealer, put on some abrasive paste. Applied Axe abrasive paste to the bare wood of the rim, follow that up with Axe polish, and finally the bowl was done. And that takes care of the rim. Well, there are little bits of tear out over here too. I put the bowl back on the chuck again, filled the rough spots with Axe polish, and buffed it all out again. I was going to wear that bowl out before I was satisfied. Well, for better or for worse, this one is finished. Still a little bit of grain showing. Torn end grain, that is. But if they were perfect, I'd sell it for $1 million. uneven. This is one I will run through the planer. Not planer, the jointer. The center of the bottom stood proud. I sanded it down below the level of the rim so that it would not rock, and I ran it through the jointer to make it perfectly smooth across the bottom. Then I sanded the center of the bottom so the bowl would sit only on the rim. Once that was done, it was time to try out my new branding iron. Then axe polishing wax. And an improvised buffer before I had a buffing wheel. That worked pretty well. This video ran much longer than I intended, but it's much shorter than the first draft. I hope you enjoyed it in spite of the length. I hope you come back for more. If you subscribe to my other channel, Oregon Oldtimer, that subscription does not transfer over to this channel. You have to subscribe again. I'd appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you next time.